Calling the order contracts and property committee meeting Thursday, May 9th, 2019. At the time is?
Time is 6:33.
Down 13 call, the roll please.
Councilor Austin,
Present.
Councilor Martin,
Present.
Councilor Smith,
Present.
Councilor President Brown.
Present. Okay, remarks of public. Do we have no one's here from the administration? Remarks of public on agenda items, 2 minutes, please.
I don't know if y'all read the legislation we'll be discussing tonight, but I don't know, I need to put this as positive as possible. Do you understand what you're doing with this legislation tonight? And do you understand what you did with the legislation that you passed Tuesday? I never got to see the actual piece of legislation, but if you look in there, it says something, collective bargaining agreement. If you pass that, which you did the one for the fire, which I didn't know, but it's crazy.
That collective bargaining too?
It has the same thing in there. What you are doing is giving the arbitrator, you're putting the collective bargaining agreement into law, which is I don't know how to put it, but it's crazy. You're putting the collective bargaining agreement into law. Have you all read the collective bargaining agreement? Why do you think Timothy Russell, the guys, those cops who killed him, they got their jobs back because the arbitrator, and Tamir Rice, the guy who killed him, is going to get his job back. But that's because of the arbitrator, and that's because of the collective bargaining agreement. If you put this into law, which you already did for the fire department, anything that any officers do that's violating rights or whatever they do, they'll be protected because you're putting the collective bargaining agreement into law. It's like, who does that? Why is the collective bargaining agreement in here? That needs to be strike through. So that's really like a major concern. It's already bad enough that some of these officers who do bad get their jobs back. We do have some good officers though, but you're never supposed to codify a union agreement because we don't know what the union agreement is going to be in the next 10 years. So how can you codify it now and then it's going to change and we don't know what it's going to change to, but you're going to codify it. So I'm telling you, that's some dangerous waters to be treaded in, and hopefully I think most of the stuff in here was okay, but that part right there needs to be struck through because it's a dangerous piece to have in there. Maybe y'all can read that collective bargaining agreement.
If what the previous speaker has spoken in reference to, I suddenly echo that because you have given a blank check to the bargaining, you've taken away the negotiation in bargaining, what have you. So that is the norms. You negotiate, and so if this is what I don't have the piece, I cannot eloquently speak on it because I do not have the ordinance in front of me. I just have the preamble, and what the previous Justin has spoken, I concur with that wholeheartedly. I was under the impression that you was amending, or what the charter says, all department heads, as the police chief is a department head, and he is supposed, or he or she should not be under
Collective bargaining?
he should be in unclassified, not in classified in the collective bargaining. He's supposed to be just as all other departments in the city, as under unclassified, which means that the departments or the elected officials, you are under unclassified. And if you read the charter, section 29, so stipulates that, and I shall read it for you for your edification, that this is what you are supposed to do. I have the charter here, and it definitely, right now we are in violation. The mayor is in violation, and it reads as follows. I'm looking at it.
Section 29, I have it here. Your time is up though, but I'll read it for the record.
Please do.
The civil service of the city is hereby divided into unclassified and classified service. The unclassified service shall include all officers elected by the people, the mayor and all directors of departments, the members of all boards or commissions appointed by the council or the mayor, the clerk of council, and such other offices and positions as may be determined and prescribed by the council. The classified service shall consist of the police, sanitary police, and fire forces of the city, and such other offices and positions as shall be determined and prescribed by the council, except as hereinbefore provided. So that's what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay. So, Clerk, can you read the legislation?
Ordinance number 24-19. An ordinance to amend section 123.02A of the codified ordinance of the city of East Cleveland and Revelant Park in order to draw a sufficient pool of qualified police officers to adequately serve the residents. Requested by Council President Joey Graham, sponsored by Contracts and Property Nathaniel Martin, Councilor at Large.
You were,
Health and safety.
okay, so that's.
That was my concern.
Okay.
I do have some, when we get to discuss that, this collective bargaining thing kind of stands out with me when, and I see Commander Gardner's here in McDonald, so we need to,
Now,
I'm
the
glad we're
collective,
discussing this.
yeah, I think it's necessary to discuss. Now, the portion that's been amended for the fire department, the collective bargaining agreement, the fire legislation, if you read the ordinance, 12303, that's always been in there. The amendment, let me make sure. So 123.03A has not been amended. The section, that portion of the collective bargaining agreement is still reading the same as was originally before it was amended for the fire department and this said legislation. So, Captain Gardner, if you can come up and, now I'll give my justification or my rationale. I was kind of piggybacking off of what the fire department was doing, as far as having a sufficient pool. And I realize now I have an understanding that when you promote within the police department, that's all the way up to the chief, correct? From inside, not externally, correct?
As of current, yes,
As
correct.
of current. And so the rationale was to give the administration or the mayor the ability to promote, I thought said ranks or possible chief outside, but I'm hearing different things as far as the internal makeup of the police department, and that maybe the legislation should be amended to state that the mayor has the ability to hire the chief outside of the department because of the classification instead of the internal ranking. So we can amend the legislation, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it and let us know all the issues that may arise as a result of it.
Sure. And I'll be honest, I'm probably the worst person that could speak on this because I obviously have standing on this. So I wanted to say that in full disclosure.
Well, that's fine.
All right. So I'm trying to give you an objective viewpoint.
And also your personal, as how it would affect. I want an objective viewpoint, but I also want to know directly how you feel about the legislation and
I understand the intention of council to bring It's sort of an enticing idea to bring in outside criteria for the mayor or to select as far as the officers and the chief of police. I do wholeheartedly agree. I think it would be a completely slippery slope for council to pass the ordinance relative to anybody below the chief's position, only because, again, you have the morale factor, the factor of a guy who's been on the job. It's hard enough to keep retention in the police department as it is right now, just unfortunately because of we're one of the poorest paying departments around. And it's extremely hard to keep retention. And so you have somebody that's been on the job for 5 years. What is their incentive to continue to be on the job for 5 years if somebody can be brought in as their sergeant from the outside? Again, you're also, administration has the ability to look at the rank and file and pick the best candidate for promotion from internally. At least you know what you're getting internally. You don't know what you're going to get externally. And from understanding, Madam President, Council, you're saying you're going to strike that language as far as the mid-level rankings?
Yes. Well, I'm like I said, going in and just talking with different officers, kind of off the record, and then letting me know how that would impact the department. When you write these type of things, I'm thinking more or less how it would benefit the city if we're able to pull from outside if possible, other than what we've been able to. But I think now that it should strictly just be the chief, maybe, that we can look at and have the option of hiring externally versus rank and file. So as the legislation reads now, it's not saying that, but that's why it's in committee, so we can go over all of the nuts and bolts of it. So
I think it would serve a fairly strong purpose as far as entry-level positions, which I believe was the original intention for the fire department. As far as bringing in entry-level positions into the police department without going through the civil service process, I think that would be very beneficial in the hiring practices for the police department. I would strongly, and again, I can say this objectively, I would strongly oppose doing so in between rank and file. I could see it for the chief's position. Again, it gives you a better criteria and pool. If an administration feels at some point that the chief of police has a bad nature or is bringing in a bad rank and file, then you would be able to always pool and bring in someone else. Again, the only thing I would caution on, I believe, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, I believe the top pay for the chief of police is $84,000. So you also have to consider what kind of people are going to apply for that position for $84,000. And in my opinion, you're going to get not very qualified people. So I mean, that's again, that's my objective take. I would very much support lateral for entry level. I would very much oppose mid-management. I believe that should be promoted from within. And I would be indifferent on as far as the chief, bringing in an outside chief.
So you would be opposed to bringing in an outside chief?
I would not be opposed. And again, I say that as next in line. So, I mean, I think that carries, I would hope that would carry a little more weight. That I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, it should be up to the administration to decide who they want to lead the police department. I wouldn't see anything wrong with that. Several cities do that.
Cleveland does that.
Correct. Right now, as it currently stands, the chief position is a civil service position, so it must be promoted from within side. But I could see, the ability to have the pick of outside sources, or basically being able to pick from outside or picking from inside for the chief of police.
And the rationale is really, from my point of view, when I was writing the legislation, was that we've had certain scandals with the police department, and from time to time or what have you. And the chief is the head person, the person that all the responsibility would actually fall on. And if we're hiring the chief from within, and let's say we need to stir something up, instead of, originally taking all positions, but with the chief, then that would allow the administration the ability to try and clean house in the event there was a culture that existed within the department that caused any type of, I don't know, just a bad mark on the city. So to hear that you would be indifferent, now what would be the, in your opinion, the negative as far as hiring a chief from the outside? Is there any kind of?
I mean, again, it sort of falls back to the same thing. I mean, and this goes subjectively now at this point, I guess. I mean, I've been here since 1999. I've tried to further myself as far as my education in my first year of law school. So, I mean, just from anybody's point of view, again, you're taking somebody who has been here for quite some time and has the ability to do the job, so it's somewhat demoralizing in that respect. But again, I can understand, personally, I can understand why we would want to.
Because it's not the intention to cause any dissent within the police department. It's not the intention to cause any kind of confusion. It's not because there's something right here and now that's, that's setting the precedent for it. It's just that I think that in order for our police department to just have a better pool of candidates for positions, and I understand now that with the rank and file, how you may work for the police department underpaid 5, 6, 7 years, and then someone come in from the outside and be able to uprank or outrank you. And so definitely I can see how that can cause for some concern. So that's all the questions I have for you. I'd like to open up to council.
So let's deal with the basic officer. This legislation, and I'm getting some clarification. Does it impact the basic patrol officers?
As it reads now, yes.
As it reads now.
As it reads now.
Okay, and that's the amendment in section 2?
The section, well, yeah, that's the amendment. It's actually, it doesn't state here on part B. There was a part B, so I think we need to get I think we need to get this tweaked a little bit better, the way that it currently reads. Because it does say letter of transfer, hold on, and then it says entry level, full or part-time law enforcement officer position. So that would be every single rank. And I think maybe it should be defined specifically to the chief as a result of the collective bargaining agreement.
Why?
Because of section 29 of the charter, as I read earlier.
I just want to know why, man. I want to see why you want to ask some questions.
Yeah, hold it 1 second. Hold it.
No.
Excuse me.
Oh, man, I went to the gas station, man, and I got that damn videotape today, man. No, man. Hell no. No.
What is he talking about?
Too much corruption going on, man. Hell no.
There is also, I mean, and again, I don't know.
Before you move on that, it says mayor in section 123A.03A says all appointments and promotions in classified service of the city shall be made by the mayor according to the merits and fitness. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we all right with that? That's section.
That's how it reads anyway,
Right,
and that hasn't changed at all.
No.
None of that has changed at all. Like if you pull it up right now, section 123 of the codified ordinances, none of that's changed.
Now the collective bargaining agreement that a couple of the citizens raised, what's your take on that? And we got the attorney here. Legally, what should that be in this or?
Well, that's for classified services, but the chief of police would technically be unclassified, correct?
Yes.
So according to section 29, section 29 of classification,
Mm-hmm.
legally per the charter, in order to do this, we would only be able to change the chief's position based on section 29 of the classification clause. And that's what is not shown
In here.
and reflected in the legislation, correct?
So basically,
Hold on 1 second, 1 second, because he's on the committee. Councilman Austin?
Okay, I think there was some discussion, I just wanna kinda make sure I'm maintaining the focus on why the legislation was raised at this point. There has been an exceptional turnover to begin in the fire department, and they're seeking on a process by which more qualified officers may be interested in staying regardless of their current, rate, if you will. And this was seen as an opportunity or an incentive to encourage officers to stay within the great city of East Cleveland if they understood that they're gonna have the best opportunity for promotion based on the, change in the legislation. And was that the intent, or is that what you understood, or? I got two sets of information that I looked at. One was a discussion about promoting from within and incentivizing the officers that are currently on the East Cleveland Police Force and or fire department role to stay based on the opportunity to be promoted from within. Is that right?
So this legislation was pretty much piggybacked off of the fire department's legislation. So to actually have a greater pool or possibility of different officers if we can hire from outside of the police department.
Okay.
As it
Promote
currently
from
is,
outside.
promote from outside.
Okay, I got you.
But as the legislation reads now, classified positions are under a collective bargaining agreement. So we could not promote outside rank and file for the police department. The only position that we can, per section 29, is the position of the chief,
Okay.
because that is unclassified.
Okay.
So it's not part of the bargaining agreement. Am I correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Just to make a suggestion here, clear something up.
Yeah.
All of the classified is identifies as to whom falls under the classification of the police officer, same with the fire department. Where the distinction comes in is the chief, which is a department head, which falls under the unclassified. He should not be in. All of the other in the charter and the ordinance refers to the police as well as the fire department as to the classification of the administrative service of those policemen from I guess from patrolmen to officers, and that they are promoted within that rank. Only thing is different here, what you have the opportunity to change and follow the law that is laid down. That is the chief of police to become either you can hire within or
Without.
outside.
Understand.
Thank you.
That's the way it operates.
And the only, again, you were talking about the negative effect. The only thing that I can possibly think of as far as soon as you take that chief's position, because he is absolutely correct, the chief of police is not by law allowed to be part of the union. So he's not covered under the CBA whatsoever, he or she. But, you know, you may get a situation right now, the chief of police is a civil service, which is still somewhat protected. So the only problem I could ever see is if there was conflict between administration and the chief, that the administration could just easily fire the chief for doing his or her job.
That's true too.
So, I mean, that's
personality
correct.
issues or something like that.
So there could be an issue down the line in that regards, because that the chief is no longer going to have that civil service standing. So the mayor at that time could fire the chief for no cause.
And
When
when I went over this with the law director and Ms. Kyle, and we reached out to Chief Cardilli, and we talked about the collective bargaining, but he said maybe he doesn't have everything in front of him or what have you. So that's why we went forth with this. But I'm glad that we're having the discussion so we can tweak the legislation and, you know, see if this is something we want to do or not. But I just wanted to have this conversation and the discussion regarding it. I'm sorry. Councilman, you wanted to say something else?
All I want to say is, I have a major concern about the morale of the police, the fact that we can't pay them what they deserve. So I'm glad to feel that this is not impacting the rank and file. The chief is a different situation since he's an unclassified. I don't know how the other ones feel about it. The mayor has the power to fire the chief of police for just cause. That's correct, right? Or does he not?
Protects him, and it's hard to fire a tree. Yeah, it was super hard to fire Lane.
Okay, I'm asking Gardner, the question to him. Does
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
the mayor have the power to fire the police chief for just cause?
As of right now, you
As of right now, right?
Yes, there would be, again, the chief would be afforded civil service law to back him up at this point. So you would have to have some sort of just cause in order to fire the chief at this point. Again, the civil service laws would back the chief up from performing in performance of his job, his or her job. And so right now, yes, you would have to have just cause.
So the essence of this would just be to change the impact of the hiring of the police chief inside outside. That's really okay. All right.
So, and that's why committees are great, because, I mean, when you write the legislation, there's sometimes, you gotta go back and look at it and see how it impacts everyone having these conversations. I don't know what you go through day to day. I don't know how you deal with things in-house. So, it's good to be able to talk with you and hear all those things. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ms. Downs.
Thank you, Commander.
I've been here since '07, and council's always done a good job. Whatever I need, they're always there for me. But I truly believe if we hire someone from the outside, the morale of the police department is already low. And I believe, just like it happened already when the last police chief left and I was under him, Ralph Spots, we lost about 7 or 8 people immediately.
When he left.
When he left, we lost immediately.
5.
It was like 8 officers, which left the city in emergency. Where we had only 3 officers on the road, and I was one of them. And we had to defend ourselves and the city. When you hire someone from the outside in, it's going to be a disturbance. I'm not saying that it's going to be disturbing for a long time, but you don't know what you're getting. I truly believe that the officers that we have now are doing the best that they possibly can, and we turning this police department around day by day. From the complaints that we receive from council and our citizens, because our citizens come first. That's been my motto all the time. The officers at this time, and I can speak for the officers, they have families just like everyone else have families in here. And there's a lot of officers who travel miles and miles to come here to work for the quality of training that we give them. And I mean the training that East Cleveland that you allow the officers to come to work, they're getting better training than any police department around in the county, possibly the state. And that's why we losing all these police officers that we train. And they're not staying here no more than a year to 2 years. And they have the books to prove it. And they go into all these surrounding cities, all these surrounding villages, and taking our work to their police department. It's one guy that had only a year experience from East Cleveland. He left here and went to the sheriff department. And he had 5 different offers from other high-paying police departments. I think right now what we really need to focus on is trying to keep officers here than to keep them running away. I mean, it's just not fair to the citizens that one day they might have this good officer patrolling their street and doing a great job, then next day he's gone and they say, oh, well, where's this officer? And that's what we're doing now. He's gone. He has a new job. Beechwood, Shaker, the sheriff department.
So focusing on the rate of pay, that's more of an incentive to, obviously, to.
I think being a police officer has been very interesting and fun for me. Yes, I have my ups and downs, but me going through the rank makes me feel proud, and it makes other police officers feel proud. I might want to be a police chief one day, but I have to go through the ranks to get that blessing. And I don't want no one from the outside coming in and taking that blessing away from me. I'm not ready to be a police chief, but I know the quality of people that we do have now in line. And that's all I have to say with this. Do you have any questions for me?
I have a question for you and Gardner, and this is a rumor, so I will ask the question and you give me the answer. I'm hearing that Mr. Cardelli is going to be leaving in the next few months. Is that true or is that not true?
Well, I can't speak for
I'm asking that to Gardner. Okay. Is Mr. Cardelli leaving by August or what I'm hearing in the street?
Honestly, I do not know. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. He was originally supposed to retire in November.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, he's not submitted his paperwork. I don't know what his intention is. I believe he is waiting for discussions with administration. But again, that's.
Well, we would like to know, and if you go through a process that's in place right now, the next police chief will come from the ranks. That's the way it's set up right now.
Right.
Okay. So I know when Spots left, it was a shock to everybody, and how he left, because we liked Spots and we wanted to, send him off like you guys did, but we wanted to do something special. But he left, and it was a surprise and a shock to everybody.
It really was.
It was somewhat of a shock to us as well. So
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, I'm going to tell you now, I took a lateral transfer to another city. Everyone looks across the street and the grass is always greener. But when I went over to that department, the warmth was not there. And that department paid really good. However, it didn't feel like home. And you guys everybody up there already know the abuse that I take and the slandering. But I still came back here to serve. There's a lot of people who show me that I do a great job. And I will continue to do a great job. And I would always want the ranking to be within the police department, to keep it traditional and stop taking away the things that the East Cleveland have that's tradition.
Can I ask a question? So, were these are bilateral transfer for entry level?
Now, entry level, that is nice, but when we do the entry level police officers, we just like right now, CMHA was a low-paid police department. They just got a heck of a big raise. Now you have everyone going into CMHA to get paid. So we might be losing officers again.
You also have them going to Tri-C too, right?
Tri-C pays really good. I mean, if you go down to Tri-C, you will see that a lot of East Cleveland police officers is at Tri-C. We have to make ends meet. So that's what these officers, young officers, are doing. We don't have no one here. If you look at it, we have no one here less than 5 years. And they keep leaving because of the money, the finances.
So what is the rate of pay for an entry level officer?
for the current grade 1 or
Yeah, like grade 1, like when they're first coming in. What's that level?
is it 20? I believe it's around $20 somewhere in there.
19, I think 19, something 19.
19 change. Something like that.
Entry level?
Yes.
You sure?
And right now, currently, the way it stands, and I guess that's why it might be beneficial for the entry level lateral,
Uh-huh.
is right now technically we could only hire off of a civil service list. The only way around that is the BPO, the basic patrol officer position, is a non-civil service position. So that's what the department has been utilizing at this point, and hiring, getting people hired is putting them in the BPO position, and I believe they're only getting paid like $16 an hour.
So, to change the legislation, so do you think that, so would it be beneficial for it to be a lateral transfer for entry level if that wording was in there, or no?
I believe as far as entry level, it would be beneficial because then that officer could at least come in at the civil service rate,
Yes.
opposed to the BPO
So where
rate.
it says, or by lateral,
Indeed.com, it says $16.76 an hour for a police officer for East Cleveland.
16?
$16.76 an hour.
So, or bilateral transfer for entry level patrol law enforcement officer. You said that would be beneficial.
I think that would be highly beneficial, yes.
Could I interject something here that you should put in there also?
Sure.
In hiring and training them, you should stipulate they must serve 5 years before they can leave the city or what have you.
And we do have currently, I'm not sure, the law department would probably know better than I do. We currently do have a 2-year, or did we increase it? Do you know offhand? We do have a 2-year contract, I believe, at this point, where they must reimburse the city for training time for equipment that's been issued.
After 2 years.
After they're hired, yeah, they have to stay on at least 2 years. If they don't, they have to pay X amount of money back for training, equipment, and so on and so forth.
And with that being said, ask the captain, with that contract, how many people still left? About 5 people
And they still did it
left.
irregardless.
They left and they paid us the money, took our training with them, and now they out serving in another city with our training.
So to be competitive with other municipalities, what would the rate of pay be for entry level and up the ranks? Like, how would, I didn't look up the other municipalities, but to be competitive, if the city had the finances to be competitive and or better, what would the entry level position
And I felt bad because I did not come prepared. I didn't realize I was going to be discussing that. I mean, honestly, I would just be throwing blind figures out at this point. I
we
don't.
can look that out, we can find that out to see what it would be. Because I think that's the, I hope that this didn't offend anyone in the police department, because we are looking ways at, as well as the service department, we're looking at ways to pay and indemnify the officers. You guys are out there. But this was just something that I was just looking at and saying how and what other ways can we, and not realizing that's why I said it's good to have this discussion. And I'm not ready to move forward on anything until I talk with the chief of police and he's able to come in front of council if you'd like to. So that's just my opinion of it, but that's just to open the door and have this discussion so we know what we can do. Outside of that, what else can council do? What else can we do for the police department? What would you like to see us do?
I feel that, honestly, we need to work a little bit more together. If council receives any complaints, in which I know your phone blows up all the time, Councilman Smith called me all the time, and I took care of business for him. Whenever you guys call, you are first priority to make sure that we serve the citizens of East Cleveland correctly. Everyone sometimes have a bad apple in their batch. In this department, we've been dealing with that. However, our main focus moving forward is serving the citizens of East Cleveland. And we want to work hand in hand with you all to do so.
And I don't know if it's something that, I don't even know if this is the appropriate forum at this point, but I don't know if it's something the council has considered. It's something that I've looked at doing as far as, whether Mr. Anderson believes me or not. I want to be totally transparent. And one of those ways is, the city of Cleveland has like a civilian review board. I wouldn't even, I don't know if council's even considered anything of that nature. Again, majority of things that I combat now and as an administrator is citizen complaints. And they feel that they've been wronged. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at and addressed. And I think for the residents of East Cleveland, it needs to be transparent. So again, I don't know if it's something that council may want to pursue, just looking at an advisory board that can review the complaints that come into the police department and make sure that we as administrators are doing the correct thing.
And I think that helped out a lot with another city, our neighboring city, when they worked with council and set up this advisory board. Therefore, everyone was in a circle, everyone knew everything which hand was doing.
Well, we do. We have a citizens advisory. Well, we don't have one currently, but that is outlined. So,
But that citizens advisory board worked with us too. So when we have these unjust situations, they can sit in and listen on what's going on as well. And then therefore now the citizens is working along with the police. So everybody's working together.
back. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that every complaint comes in, I don't know how, meet monthly, quarterly, whatever, and every complaint that's come in, they review and see whether or not we've applied the correct amount of discipline that they feel. And if not, they voice their, concern. And again, depending on how much power council gives the board, they can either be strictly advisory or they can actually have some sort of say. And I think that would be very beneficial.
I want to interject, and always you can if you share one. At least once or twice over the years I've been on council, we did come up with the civilian review board. We discussed it. I think you remember that over there.
And they would go through the review board, and then if they wasn't satisfied, they come before council.
But we never acted formally to put anything formally in place.
And that's what always happens. When we'll start something, and then it'll just, for somehow, everything we start that's doing good, fall off.
Right.
This needs to stay.
Well, I'd like to sit maybe all of council, maybe we can set something up where we can discuss that further and see how we can implement that, make that come to fruition.
And I'm willing to work with that too. And you just need to have some teeth in it. I'd rather have some teeth, not just advise you, but teeth where if there's a bad apple we can deal with it.
Absolutely.
And that's primarily what I think. I want to make sure that we have those kind of checks and balances in place for the police department. And it's like, and council's doing this, the administration's doing this, police doing that, fire doing that. And if we're going to revitalize the city, we all need to work in tandem. So I appreciate your honesty and
absolutely.
all of that.
Police should be held accountable, absolutely. And I think that it deserves an outside committee to look at it. I have no issue with that whatsoever, and I would strongly support it.
Thank you all.
Councilman Austin,
Yeah,
I think you have some questions.
I'm sorry.
I'm just learning and going through this process.
I'm sorry.
And I do appreciate your candor in saying that there are some concerns with bringing people in from outside and having the perspective that you have. Said that I've been here for this many years, and eventually I want to be able to rise through the ranks and become the chief. And speaking of the training pool that we talked about, now I understand better. There, I think the mayor mentioned there was a class of 8 people going through training. Is that about right? The number of applicants that pass the first phase of the test and go through the training phase of the test, and that is the pool that you're talking about. They select from just that pool that's in that group of folks that we know passed stage 1, stage 2.
The captain and I have changed the whole training process. So we working on, we making it better.
Okay. So now this pool of folks, the 8 candidates, we can only hire based on last, passing or whatever evaluation that it takes to get out of that pool. Those 8. If those 8 fall down to 4, then we can only hire 4 because there's only 4 available. Is that what I'm saying?
You're asking if
like the mayor hired. We had a ceremony last month for like 5 or 6 police officers. Remember that?
Yes.
Right. So those 6 were the only available applicants, or were those 6 that made it through the training?
It's not the training, the hiring process. We done changed the hiring process to make it a little stronger for people to come and get this training that we have. So those that was standing before you, 4 of them already left to other police departments. And they're the ones that were selected from the administration to work.
I believe that we're actually bringing on 4 more on the 13th. Our
May
4 additional
13th?
officers are being sworn in on the 13th.
4.
4.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are still looking for additional officers also. But again, as Sergeant McDonald was talking about, you know, it's a turnover ratio. I mean, as soon as we get them in, get them trained, they leave, and so then you have more vacancies.
And then, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you, the minority party, I've been out trying to find, you know, black officers to come to work here. I went through Cleveland Heights Police Academy, I went to Tri-C Police Academy, I went to Lakeland Police Academy. I went to these police academies, and the first thing I'm trying to look for is black officers to come to work for this community. And, you know, and the responses that I receive from the candidates are embarrassing.
For an example, what did they say?
I'm hearing that not, some of them aren't even passing drug tests.
We getting the responses. You know, I'm not going to work for that. I gotta get paid. Then we get them in here. The few that I select or, you know, bring in, I'm begging them to come in. They come in and drug test. The one guy just left out. You know, we having a hard time.
So you mean people apply for a police position, know they have to take a drug test, and then actually will either fail or walk out so they don't have to take a drug test?
So that's and what I want you to do, just to be a witness of it, I'll have counsel come with me when I go to try to recruit. And then you will hear from your own standpoint the things that I'm hearing when I go try to bring in minorities to the city. That's why you don't see a lot of minorities here, because they don't want to be here. The first thing they say is because of the pay. The first thing come out their mouth is, I'm not going to get killed for that pay. That's the first thing that come out of a lot of their mouths. You know, it's a chuckling moment now, but it's sad. It's really depressing. It's depressing. And, you know, I stand here as a black officer. So I want minorities here as well. But when you have 10 people apply for the positions that we have, and out of the 10, it's only 2 blacks, and out of the 2, you get 1, what do?
Well, didn't you guys at one time, I know Cleveland had a component for the African American police officers, and I thought one of the major barriers for us, besides the pay, was them passing the test.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues that threw a lot of them out.
You know, we have the urine analysis, we have the CVSA, which they have to come in and be truthful.
Right.
I mean, the machine don't pinch you, it don't punch you, it don't do anything.
Is it like a lie detector?
Yes, it's pretty much, yes, it's to detect if you're not telling the truth. And we can't get past that. We need good quality police officers. We need good quality pay. At least halfway. So at least we can give these officers some incentives to stay. Because I'm telling you, we just having them, they leave every day. Every day someone trying to put in. I bet if we go downstairs and talk to the officers, 5 of them are looking somewhere else to work. And these 5 officers downstairs now just was hired.
So it's just strictly the pay. Is there anything else within the police department that maybe causes something for them not to want to be
You know,
here?
in every police department, it's always something, but the main thing that police officers look for is pay. That's why they work all these jobs to make up for what they're not getting. Some of them don't get to sleep because they trying to make ends meet for their families.
Elsewhere. So they're moonlighting elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of questions are they asking on this On the lie detector test.
They ask normal questions. You
They can't pass it, so
you
I'm
can
wondering
come and
what-
see the questions. You can. It's normal
I'm just wondering,
questions.
are they
Like, what color is
unusual?
your hair? Like,
When was the last time you used drugs?
Okay.
And that's knocking them right out the box.
And quite honestly, we've lowered our standard on that. It used to be pretty hard standard. Now for marijuana, it's less than a year, or for a year. Several hard narcotics, or 5 years. And again, you have to do it in order to get any type of candidate whatsoever, unfortunately.
well, I'd like to, another thing too that I noticed, like whenever we hire police, I know they're sworn in at different times, but I just met one of the newer officers when we were cleaning up Nicole. I didn't even know she was on the force, and I think that's something that maybe we can start doing, communicating better, and so that council can know, and maybe invite them to council if they're sworn in, because a lot of times they're sworn in during the middle of the day. And so I'm getting the feeling that like the police department feels somewhat alienated in a sense. I don't know, with the rate of pay, and you guys do as much as you do. I mean, when we're talking about trying to bridge those gaps between the different departments.
So, Madam President, would you like to have the swearing in before council at the council meeting?
That's the way it used to be. Yeah, it would be
I
there.
think that would be beneficial.
That would be beneficial.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we can start, and you
It
know,
is
just
taken
up
away
in the
from
mayor's
you guys.
office where
That's
nobody
taken
sees
away.
anything. I mean, that's something where you can give the officers somewhat a firm footing on starting off the career in East Cleveland. They're recognized by council. People see who they are. Maybe they may feel a little bit more appreciated. I don't know.
That's a great idea.
No, I think it is.
Let me,
But the economics, and then you yield to him. The major barriers to economics is the fact that we can't pay officers what they deserve, and I've been seeing that the last few years or longer. And that's not gonna change until probably within the next 3 to 5 years. So, taking that into consideration, what do we do, knowing that we can't pay them? Are we gonna continue to have the revolving door where they come in for 2 or 3 years
You
and
know,
they're
I think,
gone?
Councilman, I think that we as council we need to look at our budget, look at the budget again.
Okay.
And I think that is what we are, you know, we appropriate, we legislate and we appropriate. And it's not just the service departments, our police and our fire, so I think we can take a look at that and more in depth. A lot of times, since I've been on council, whenever we get the budget, last 2 times under Norton, first time under Norton, it was kind of rushed to council and this and that and the other. So I think that's a call that we need to make and try and
And the piggyback, because I mean, some of the things that I've tried to do to improve morale, as far as having some sort of benefit and recognition of the officers for the job they do. So actually, right now, Commander Mitchell actually keeps track of really good, solid arrests, good things that the officers do, and like once a quarter, we sort of have like an award ceremony, and I very much like it.
For us to
If
be
you
there?
guys might be able to attend, I think that would.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, okay?
And one thing I do know, like the officers, there's officers that are like Officer McDonald, another you as well. I know sometimes it's not always about the pay. You actually get to learn the people that are in the community and start to, you know. So if we can have that kind of bond, you know, with the community and kind of sponsor that. I think that might be another thing, because sometimes the pay might be higher elsewhere, but you have an allegiance to where you are, or you know certain things. So that's just.
And unfortunately, I think on the upper end right now, you have that. We just don't have that the lower end bond at this point, but it's something that we're trying to bridge.
I want to thank you for all you do. The council, did you have any questions? Okay. All right. Yeah, you can ask your question.
before you leave, because I have something. It's,
A question.
well, question and statement. Number one, in order for the officer, well, that's okay. I understand what you want to do and question the officers, but that's basically not your role. Number one, you should have the mayor sitting here, question what you're going to do. You know the economic status of the city. When you're not building anything, you're not rehabbing anything, you're tearing down everything. There goes your revenue. When you begin to bring people in, and nobody gonna come into a dead city or whatever, because I'll bring their business because this is there. Now, the thing here,
Question? I thought you said you had a question.
I did, but but the charter plainly states, it's not what they say or what you may lack. The charter says that the department heads, and you just read it to them again, it is incumbent upon you to do the legislation and wait, let me just finish, ma'am.
Okay.
That's our problem.
No, the problem, go ahead. I'll give you it.
Our problem is I mean, you made me say.
So, yeah, this will be your remarks.
I heard you. Well, let me just read something. I have written a piece here, and you tell me how it ordinance. An ordinance to authorize the mayor to appoint a police chief outside or within the ranks of the police department, according to Charter Section 29, as well as Ordinance 5541 and Section 123.02 A and B, and declaring an emergency. Sponsored by, whereas the council has determined that the mayor shall appoint a police chief from, excuse me,
That word come up here.
shall appoint a police chief from outside or within the ranks pursuant to Section 29 of the Charter, addressing the component question, I can't read my right, facing the city, like promotion, exam, discipline, matters.
That reads a lot better. I can agree. That does read a lot better.
Yeah,
It's more specific. So when we sent the request up, I sent it up to the law director. So I think that's something that referencing Section 29 and all of that, I think that clarifies it a lot better. So this legislation isn't going anywhere. All right, so we get an understanding of what we really need to do, but it's nothing wrong with having a discussion. Even though the department head wasn't here, I wanted to have that discussion and put it out there because these are things that people have brought up to me specifically. So this is a learning process.
I think, well, not adding to this, but adding in, if you're going to amend that, I think that you need to inculcate in that piece that if we hire you and send you through the training, you must have 5 years, make it 5 years.
Yes. Okay, we'll look at what's already there.
And because I think that the charter addressed some of that, but I don't know what he said to me.
Yeah, I couldn't find it in the charter.
And secondly, not in the charter, the codified ordinance. That's where it's at. There's something else.
We're gonna move on, Mr. Mays. Thank you for that, though. I appreciate that. Your legislation you wrote. Thank you.
Okay, that was something else I wanted.
All right. So next, are we okay with everything?
Yeah, I just want to say that the dialogue was good. I would like to,
Have it moved to your committee?
well, anything pertaining
Police
to
and fire.
police and fire.
Okay.
Okay, we gotta work together. I talk about it all the time, and I'm still with them. The essence of the situation, where I said before you walk out here, it's economics. And we have some good police officers, and we have some bad ones. So one thing we can do, I think, I like was so we have something productive coming out here to put that civilian review board in place. So I hope that we can collectively work on that.
Okay.
Maybe, I know I got a meeting coming up next week, and we can add that hope you can be here and we can start working on putting that in place. So that's a good thing. So I just want to let you guys know that my intention is that we got to work together if we're gonna save the city. If not, they're gonna come here and take it over and price us out. And that's only a matter of a few years away. So that's the key thing. So I'm gonna go because I gotta get ready for tomorrow. But
Okay.
All right.
And also I included just.
Alright. Okay, no. So we're gonna move on. The next on the agenda is the Neighborhood Advisory Committee versus the Nuisance Abatement Board, Chapter 1313.08. So to give you some history regarding this, the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, I have not been able to find that in the charter, nor have I found it in the codified ordinances. So what I did find is 1313, the abatement board that we have, nuisance abatement board. So I sent correspondence to Mr. Leach and also to Travell Noah 3 weeks ago. We haven't received a response. We wanted someone here from the Neighborhood Advisory Committee because that is the body that refers the information back to the administration. And I really wanted to find out the role of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, wanted to know what rules were put in place for it since there's nothing black and white. I do know that Mr. Hart was appointed back in 2009, and since then that body has been operating, but I wanted to understand how, because there's nothing specific for the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. The charter doesn't make mention of it, nor does the codified ordinances. So if they're not,
Go ahead.
if it's not spelled out, I'm wondering how is council taking any information from this committee, meaning if someone wants to purchase a property, then they do whatever they do, then they have to go and have a meeting. A lot of times those properties were backlogged in the neighborhood, in the NAC for a long time, because a lot of times they have to have a quorum and they have to meet, and then it's relinquished out with a referral or recommendation, which council can say yay or nay, and they refer that to the administration. But my question is, looking at it, how are they operating? What is their rules? And we know that they don't currently have any power as far as telling someone that they can't purchase a property, but they can refer or basically say to this individual, we don't think that they should, we think this individual should. And I feel like the process has to be fair and equitable across the board. And
right now, all the appointments in the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, Madam Chairman, is by the mayor, right?
so all the appointments were made in 2009 under Gary.
Gary Norton.
No. Was Gary Norton 2000? 2009 under Gary. No, that wasn't. No, I think it was in 2009. I have to make sure of that date, but I do know that Mr. Harp said that he was appointed by Gary Norton. Since then, that body has been operating under what rules?
Yeah,
And so I wanted to have a discussion about that because there are residents that are trying to purchase and acquire property, whether it's owned by the city, whether it's land bank owned, and we know that the land bank is not in the business of just holding our property, that if we request property from the land bank, that they should be able to give it back to the city because that's not their, their property. So my question is if the NAC is the intermediate body that refers residents to the administration with a thumbs up or thumbs down, how can that be? And what do we need to put in place to make sure that that process is fair and equitable? So we wanted to have a discussion with the members of the NAC. We reached out to the NAC 3 weeks ago, as well as Mr. Leach, and we haven't received a response yet. So I was hoping someone would be here to explain this, but
Madam Chairman, all you have to do is do the legislation.
So with the rules and regulations
put
to
the
put that in
rules and
place come through the mayor,
regulations.
I'm not clear on that.
So the only thing that we currently have that refers, that's similar to the NAC is 1313, and that's of the building code. And it should be in your folder.
Okay.
And the thing that comes closest to that is the nuisance abatement board.
Okay.
Now it says the nuisance abatement board is comprised of the mayor, the director of law, and the director of community development, and their designated representatives. But that's really about a nuisance abatement. So for instance, when it was the Noble Road ARCO, I wrote a letter when I first came in asking that one of these parties that we abate the nuisance at Noble Road. The NAC is not anything that I can,
Put a handle on.
well, there's nothing black and
Yeah.
white. So if we're getting referrals from the NAC, then it should be something tangible in which they operate.
Right.
And I don't see that. And so I just have questions and want to clarify that. And you're right, we can write legislation, but we want to have this
Does the
discussion
legislation
first.
cease or assist in that? So
I'd like to see
Go
some
on.
balance on the NAC in terms of, we should have some appointments on there. So we need to look into that.
And I believe it's been the same people for multiple
Right, the
years.
same people, and I'm getting mixed messages from the citizens in terms of how why not they getting property, but other people getting property.
I
So
just
we
told you what to do, so you don't have to.
Okay, can you?
Okay. You out of order, man.
Put the order-
Okay.
You do the
Okay, but we're having a discussion, please.
So,
people in here though,
thank
can
you
they
for bringing, because I wondered how that whole thing works
What to do.
in that. So, we, if anything, we need to kind of balance that out. We should be able to, and this is my suggestion to the council, we should have 2 or 3 appointments to put on that. We talk about citizens of East Cleveland. You know, maybe have some balance. And do they have concrete rules that they go by? Or do they, if you're cool with somebody, you get something, and you're not cool with somebody, that kind of thing.
So I believe it's our job to investigate that.
I say that citizens could just come right in front of us and just dissolve the NAC. I've been saying that for a couple weeks. Period.
Thank you.
They can tell them to go in front of them and they need that.
But if you have to say
And
council.
then you write the legislation.
I think there is an opportunity to either dissolve the NAC and put in place a device that actually works for us as a whole. And I guess disinterested party should share that, meaning that somebody who's not linked to a certain personal interest, and bring forth a balanced approach to this. These are our 5 criteria. If you meet these 5 criteria, you're good to go. And keeping in mind, the plan for the city. They have been working with, I guess, Case Western Reserve to establish that 5-year plan we're talking about.
Well, I thought they were. I thought it was Urban.
You don't know, that's downtown, that's Cleveland State.
Yeah.
So if they're working with Cleveland State to establish that 5-year plan, I kind of would like to have that framework, if you will, to say, well, that doesn't fit within our plan. So we know what the plan is, and then we'll see the future opportunities for someone to purchase our property has to fit within that plan, because we don't want to be fighting like they were fighting with the guy about those lots by making. We don't really want to go through that again. So have the plan in place, and it's not all the plans don't need to be made available to everyone, but just the person that we expect to be our trusted agents in those positions to make those great decisions, so that we don't say this is a pertinent piece of land 3 years from now, then somebody will purchase it for $100 and hold on to it and try to sell it back to the city for more than they can afford to pay. So there's a delicate balance in there. I don't know how we get to that place, but the disinterested party that's a part of the new developed committee that we put in place, whether it's called NAC or whatever it's called, I think that we do need an entity that can properly adjudicate circumstances that require us to support our citizens' vision as well as the city's vision. I don't know how we get there, but yes, that is a necessity.
I think the way we get there is through legislation. So I still wanted to hear from members of the NAC, but and we haven't received any correspondence. Actually, I think it's been over a month, slightly over a month. So I think that all 3 of us can work in tandem to come up with legislation that's appropriate to make sure that residents are being heard and whatever it is. Because I think that sometimes it seems like an arbitrary thing as far as who is allowed to purchase what. and it has to be fair and equitable across the board, like I said. Do you have anything to say?
No, thanks.
Any questions about the NAC or anything outside of Mr. Mays?
Yes, I have some questions.
Oh, no, this isn't, I'm talking about specific, anybody else? Okay, Ms. Davis? Yes. Ms. Davis, you're very patient.
Yes, I've been very patient, and I appreciate this opportunity to come forward because, as you know, I have been before every single entity here in East Cleveland about the same issue, and just a week or so ago, I met again with Mr. Jason Canal at the Land Bank because I have the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. I have the minutes from the meetings that I have had with the NAC, and they concluded that they have no jurisdiction. So all of that was just, an exercise. Everything I've done has just been an exercise. And when I went back and spoke to the Land Bank, he agreed. And so he had me just start all over to submit a third application. And just going back to the basic application where it states the Cuyahoga Land Bank works closely with municipalities, and it says that the Cuyahoga Land Bank requires that the side yard application be approved by the municipality where they are located. A letter of determination must be provided specifying the municipality's approval or denial for every side yard request. And so from speaking to him, he said that all I needed was a letter of approval from this body, which is the determining body, which is, so that none of the other entities that I met with really have any say in that.
He's absolutely right.
And so that he is waiting, literally waiting, for a letter of approval from the city council. And so I was hoping that I would be able to get that. And, because I had qualified back in July, met all the qualifications specified. And there's no holdup.
On the Land Bank side.
Correct. And they are the ones who are holding the property. And so that's what he said, he was waiting, I passed your name on to him, and he's waiting to hear to get a letter of approval or denial from the city council.
How can I get one when they don't have anything?
I also applied for a side lot. I guess it's supposed to be $100, and you're supposed to provide the purpose in which the lot will be used.
All of this was given, correct.
And then it was not necessarily to build a home on a lot. It's so you can spend the parcel in which you already have. Is that right?
I read exactly, and in fact, in the NAC meeting, I read the same thing verbatim on all of my applications. And do you want me to?
No, I was because like I said, they said I couldn't do certain things on a neighbor next door going into that program, and one of them that you couldn't build a house on it.
Well, this is not specified on this. I have the application here.
It's the side lot program through the Land Bank.
Yes.
It's the Land Bank application, not the neighbor. It's two applications.
Yes. Right.
Okay, so the Land Bank, you can buy a lot and just build on it.
They ask you what you
but you can't pay. It's not you have to pay the market rate. Is that what?
No, it says $100.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because the other guy, remember the guy over there off Coit had to pay the $500 or $800. Remember that?
The appraised value.
The
appraised value.
Right, he had to pay the appraised value. Wasn't because I guess I've been trying. I also want to on your behalf and try to run
this
it to
is
ground.
the Cuyahoga Land Bank side yard program application.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
So-
two of them.
Okay. All right.
So with that being said, us knowing that I just wanted to put it on public record, I wanted someone from the NAC to be able to speak. But I think that if council is willing, if this committee is willing to entertain the request of Ms. Davis, go over her application collectively and make sure that we see everything okay. Maybe there's something that we can do to intervene, because the more I've looked, it's been about over a month that we've been in communication, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Those are one of those discrepancies that happened, that I have a problem with the NAC because of that very thing. There's been different answers or different rationales given to Ms. Davis as far as why she cannot have this land. And there's been discrepancies multiple times. And so if we have something that's across the board, uniform, then this wouldn't come about. And I think that this is something that we need to.
I believe it needs to be cleared up. I'm 100% with you.
And can I get a commitment from fellow council members that this week that we'll try and meet and see what we can come up with?
Today is Thursday.
Yeah.
You said this week.
Well,
I think we all have read Ms. Davis' paperwork, and I mean, maybe we could have a letterbox maybe tomorrow.
Oh, let's shoot for what's Monday? Tuesday. Well, I can definitely probably see if I can meet with you and just kind of go over everything. So yeah, I think that's something that we can do. I just wanted to have a consensus of the committee, contracts and property, to be able to move forward, and then check in with Mr. Jason. I can't pronounce his last name. Yeah, Jason. I'll call him and we'll discuss it further see if there's anything that he can send into council's office to clear up any of those discrepancies. But if this NAC was a board that really seemed to be worth its weight, I would think that we would already. How many times have you been in front of NAC? 3 times?
No, I've made application 3 times. I've been in front of the NAC once. I've been before the mayor and all that. I've been meeting.
And at one point in time, they weren't going to use two lots that you wanted. And at one point in time, they weren't going to give you anything, and then they offered you one, correct?
Right.
But you never received anything in writing.
No.
So these kind of discrepancies, we can't. That to me shows some type of atmosphere of, I don't want to say favoritism, but just discretion as far as maybe who it is or where the property is. I believe one of the rationales was that it was in the target zone.
I've heard that.
And it's not in the target zone because I got a copy of what the actual target zone was, that memorandum of understanding that we got from the land bank. So that shot that rationale down. Then it had something to do with building property, and that's why it was denied.
Right.
And then we went from not having anything to allowing only 1 lot. So when when things don't make sense, a lot of times they're not true in my book. So I appreciate your fight. You know, another person would have just given up, but I really appreciate your fight and helping us set the precedent for the NAC or whatever body that we can come up with to regulate these type of things. So thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to say as far as No, I'm not trying to do that.
Yes, you are.
No.
Keep it quiet.
All right, so then I guess we'll go to remarks and requests of the public. 3 minutes.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
This is not a mountain to climb. You are the legislative branch of government, which controls whatever goes on. The laws here. You make the law. You don't have to call and wait all this time. You get busy during the legislation. You put the norms, whatever, there to qualify whatever lot of land people are buying. That's your responsibility, not no NAC or whoever or whatever. It is your responsibility, and it must come back before this council. Every application that people have applied come back to this council, and this council interview, and you make the final decision, and that's irrefutable. So that's how it works. So don't let them 3 people or whoever up there usurp your authority. You have the authority. You cease and assist whatever they're doing. You are no longer there. You have the authority to appoint people to that position. That's council's job to do that. And it's council's job to either authorize or to reject. And even if the mayor rejects it, you can override his veto. That's the power you have. That's why it's 5 of you and 1 of him. The power rests with the council. So don't let that woman should have to go through this, and whatever she want to put on that land. If she want to build a house, then build a house.
Should be happy.
Yeah, thank you. What have you? Now, what he spoke about the next door neighbor, and if it's an unbuildable lot. I have never seen an unbuildable lot, and I don't know how many people in here have visited California and even Washington. Houses like that. You can't go through them, and then you go some unbuildable. We got to start doing something, building and rehabbing to boost our cash flow in the city. You cannot operate a city, you constantly raising everything in the city, destroying it, and they have nothing but empty lot. Empty lot doesn't pay no taxes. So it got to get in the hands of people, whereas you can begin to generate revenue. And then you can pay. You don't let policemen sit here and tell you, I was just speaking, oh, well, they're paying this or that. We have to look at our budget and hiring people from that perspective and put norms in there that you must serve 5 years or what have you, or you have to pay all of the money back that we have paid for your training. That will stop that. And there's not that many leaving or what have you, but because of some problems, you have the authority to write the legislation in reference to that police chief. If the mayor veto it, all you do override and it still become law. That's your job, your job and function in the city.
Thank you.
I don't think you can force someone to work a job, especially if they don't want to. But I know you can make them do things like pay for the training and stuff like that. And that might stop a lot of people from coming in, trying to force them, saying you got to stay here for this amount of time. But
Anywhere you go.
I want to thank you, Joey, for at least having a discussion about that. That is a very important topic, and many people may not realize it, but it's extremely important. And we, you know, Cardilli's set to retire soon. If he wanted to retire tomorrow, I want to let you know who's going to be our next chief. Some of the little history about him. He was indicted twice on felony tax charges, where he was committing felony tax fraud, but he pled it out to a misdemeanor. He was also caught stealing evidence out the evidence room. This isn't me just. This isn't me just throwing this out there. This is actually facts on paper. Let's talk about the department, the corruption within, costing us millions and millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Let's talk about Tiffany Cleveland and them drug dealers and the 5 officers. And this stuff was recent. This ain't like it was 30 years ago. We just say there's still a bunch of corruption going on within the department. And you all have the opportunity, because you've been fighting for these people, for our people, about police brutality. You've been on the front line, and others of you, I know you care about our people, and it is not glistening and glowing in that department. We have the opportunity to change the narrative and change what's going on in that department, and you could start with the top. You don't even have to be have a chief experience to be the chief of police. You can have be a safety director and be the chief of police. And you all need to really, we got a little time from what I believe when he's going to retire, but we still need to act on it fast, because we can actually change that department. You bring in someone outside who's not tied into that crap that they got going on down there, and we all know it's crap. We do not have a great police department. We have some good officers, but most of them are corrupt as hell, and they're going to continue to cost us millions and millions of dollars. He said that we lost 7 to 8 people when Spots left. That's going to happen regardless. The council has to come up with a better way to keep officers through the budget. I believe that's the only way. Take a look at the budget. Wherever there's loose money allocated towards the police department, Schmetley's not going to like that, but you guys are in charge of that. And McDonald left Cleveland because he said he had too many rules, but you know, he is another body here. Hopefully he doesn't do nothing crazy that's gonna jeopardize and cost us millions and millions more. And Mrs. McClellan can approve of that, because she know we're in court right now fighting plenty of cases from our police department doing all this crazy stuff, and it doesn't happen other places like it happens here. Because this type of cases we're fighting, you don't hear them locking people in closets in Cleveland Heights, making them shit themselves and all type of stuff like that. But here you see that type of stuff.
John Parker, 1257 East 135th Street. I was quite shocked by what I was hearing the officers mention. And I was interested also, especially that $16 and whatever entry level. That seemed to be an embarrassment to me, especially with police. No wonder you're losing your officers here. Every place else is offering 20-something or between $20 and $25 an hour. So this is nothing really but, I mentioned this once, we're nothing but a training camp for the rest of them. You know, who wants to be, especially a policeman, wants to work for $16? There's a lot of jobs I didn't get for $16 an hour. And then a policeman protect the community, and this is all he's getting? No wonder they're going so fast. But you're not offering them any incentive much for wanting to stay here. I may want to suggest that you take a police start at $16 entry level. Maybe after 6 months, look at your budget and see if you can give them another $1. Maybe after years, see if you give him another $1. Then he's up to $18. And every year, give him another $1. By the time he has been here about 5 years, he's up to $20 an hour. Maybe that might be giving him enough incentive to stay here instead of them just running out the door, going to these other places out here. You'll be hiring policemen forever doing that. Give them the incentive to stay. And I don't see that's happening. That's all I have to say.
Hey, how y'all doing? Walter Miller, senior father, voice of my people, SOSA, my son. First of all, let me apologize for my outburst earlier. I'm gonna be a man about it, and I'm gonna apologize. I'm looking at the whole situation with the police being underpaid, right? Underpaid don't mean that, man, you treat people, man, a certain way, man, because you're frustrated with what's going on in the city, right? Not all police are bad, right? You know, and not all police are good, just like all people ain't good, man. And all people ain't bad, right? But I feel like this, that if we can get with these companies, with these store owners out here that's making all this money off our city and taking all the money back out the city and ain't putting it back in, we need to sit down with them and give them the chance to be the first ones to reinvest in the city, right? By means is that instead of hiring outside security that y'all paying, man, $20 or $18 an hour, be willing, man, to put the money and invest, man, into our police and get them the incentive, man, to be security at the stores, right? That way, man, with what they making right here, they'll be making something extra right here that'll keep some of them here with us instead of them working for a year and going to Euclid or Warrensville and making a couple money. Because y'all know East Cleveland is a city where if you make it here, you can go be a police anywhere. It's the training ground for all cops to come through here. So my thing at the end of the day, if we find the initiative, man, if y'all find it in your hearts and your souls to get this meeting going with a lot of these businesses that taking our money, taking the money that they're making out for all the black people, and taking it out of here is not investing in our city, not doing nothing. But as soon as something happens, they want to call our police. Why can't they put our policeman in charge, man, to be security at the place? Because I know if I was doing something wrong and I walked in the store and I see East Cleveland police in here, I'm gonna buy my bag of chips, I'm gonna buy my pop, and I'm gonna walk back out that door. We got to do something, man, because we is losing some good cops, man. We lost the one cop, man, to Cleveland Clinic. He was a good little dude, man. I'm talking about he did his job. He went beyond for the older people. You know what I'm talking about, Nuno. He went beyond for the older people. And we lost him. He went to Cleveland Clinic. I mean, a couple more cops left here, you know, and they was good cops. Talk about, man, they dealt with the public. They dealt with the kids when there was a problem. You ain't see them bringing and snatching them, bringing them through the back door, bringing them to jail. They know that it's trauma going on out here. It's mental health issues going on out here. So they tried to deal with it. Now we bringing in cops, man, and they getting trained about trauma that's going on and get trained about the mental health issue. So when they pull up on a situation, they're gonna handle it the way they know how to handle it. And sometimes it turn out bad, right? So at the end of the day, we got to do something. We got to do something to make it better, man. We got to do something. Anybody that get trained as a police need to get trained about the trauma that's going on. Because this city right here, man, is a traumatized city, man. It's traumatized. Mental health issues. All over this whole city. From the prostitutes, man, to everything else. We got to do something better, y'all. We're going to lose all the police.
Right, and I agree with that. The police department.
All right, response from council and mayor to the rest of the public.
The mayor.
Oh, as the mayor said, anything to say, any response or?
I can only speak on what I've observed, and I watched when Chief Spots left, and I saw that suddenly there was an influx of former East Cleveland police officers now working for the sheriffs. There was sheriffs, Euclid, Cleveland Heights. I was seeing them everywhere. They went immediately. I'm also aware that there seem to be fewer women on the. It seems like they're trying to hire some more, but then you also have to take care of the women once they work here. And some of them don't always feel welcomed or taken care of. So that needs to be looked at. I knew where to look. We were talking about the salary. I knew where to look because I had already seen it once before. And I was shocked the first time I saw it that it was $16.76 an hour. You can make more than that as a corrections officer or a detention officer working with kids. And you're asking people to go out and put on a bulletproof vest and investigate murders and everything else for very little money. So yes, if there is any way to beef that up, that would greatly help, because they are coming in, and as soon as they get a few months under their belt, they are gone. And they're going to be an asset to any other community, because yes, this is brilliant training ground here. You're doing everything. It's not some of these suburbs out there where you never see a murder, or they haven't had a murder in 20 years. They rarely have an aggravated robbery. It's on the news when they do. You're doing this stuff every day. So yes, if you can get it here, you can go anywhere and make a living and be a good police officer. So on that, I would definitely concur. I'm not sure about the getting people in from the outside to do it. I was privy to what was going on to a degree, but I guess the issue was about what they were being paid to come in. And yes, that would be a problem if you're asking officers that are here to make $16 an hour, but you can come in on overtime from somewhere else and work more. That's always going to be a problem. I don't care what company you work for. So, yeah, I would concur that would be the biggest issue, getting a little more money for the police.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Austin.
Thank you, Madam President. You have a birthday coming up, is that right?
Yeah.
On May the 13th?
Yeah.
Same birthday as I have?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I want to wish you
thank you.
A birthday in advance. Happy birthday in advance.
You too.
I want to say that we definitely appreciate your effort, your willingness to do the deep dive when necessary, and to make the hard right over the easy wrong. Leave something that you know not to be quite the way it should, and not take some action to correct it. It may not always work out initially, but in the long term, we know that there's something we need to address at some point. And I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Change is going to come. you know, for fire and police. And this is how can I say, this is an opportunity for us to learn what right should be, and doing the analysis, what it should take, and the best possible outcome for the persons that are going to sit in these seats when we're gone. I think there is an opportunity for us to have some growth in the police department, the option for growth. And after having you educate me a little bit more on this process, I am very, very pleased with the direction that we're going as a council. I'm very thankful. And to our residents that came out, thank you. And what you say does matter, and I ask that you continue to make it so that our residents watching at home can get a little bit out of what you're putting forth, and not simply from a personal perspective or your opinion. Put the best value in there and the best bang for the buck for the greater good, if you will. To my fellow council members, thank you. Dr. Guy and everybody that helps out Dr. Guy, I want to say thank you. And again, I learned something today about this process, and I'm continuing to grow. Looking forward to growing with the team. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll keep it real short and brief tonight. Of course, I want to thank all my residents for caring enough to come out tonight. As my colleague stated, there's a great opportunity to choose from within and without. For clarity, the mayor would still have the choice to hire the police chief, regardless if we pass this legislation or not. So I know there was some statements saying that, you know, just kind of lead you to make it towards that it was the council that would be hiring the police chief, and that's not true. The mayor would pick the police chief, but it would give the mayor a chance that if it's a 137 shot incident happen, it would give the mayor the opportunity to fire the police chief if need be right then and there, instead of having to go through all the long process and things of that nature. But it's just something to consider, something to discuss, and something for you all to put your input in. So I want to thank you for that, and that concludes my brief remarks for tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
I want to thank everyone for coming out. Ms. Davis, especially, thank you for putting up the fight that you have. So I would say in summation, this legislation, what we need to do, it's going to stay in committee. We're going to look at it. We're going to tweak it to make sure that it's in line with, what is that, Rule 29?
29.
Rule 29
Charter.
in the charter. So that's something that I thought we had, but that's why we're in committee, to make sure we get it right. Taking into account what the police officer said. So there's some things that we need to do as far as that, and then I think that we have a commitment that says from this body here, this committee, that we will work on something, a letter, and I just want to make sure that after everything we do, we cross our T's and dot our I's. But I think that it's about time that we start utilizing what we were put here to do. So I would say I would probably commit to maybe, do you think Tuesday? It's too long, or too short of a time?
That's cool.
Yes. So I would give you Tuesday, Ms. Davis, and so we'll work on that independently, and then submit things to Dr. Guy, and then have a draft written up, and then all of us can look over it, approve it, and if that's what you need, then by Tuesday. I would say if there's anything before that, if there's any issue that comes up, I will let you know personally. But other than that, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thank all the residents for coming. Ms. Dolores, thank you for filling in. But other than that, everyone have a good night. God bless. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 8:13 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Ah.